Another thing I was fascinated with this particular piece was the shadows.
The first thing I want to ask is, why do you love Cinderella? Why does this story still speak to you, and why did you want to include it in the repertoire of New York Theater Ballet?
Good question. I think that Cinderella is a story that every child should read and should know. It's a life story, and I happen to love the ballet, and I knew Donald's version from the Met. So it was a version I was interested in. Many years ago, I was a friend of Kermit Love, who did Snuffleupagus and Big Bird at Sesame Street. So I met Jim Henson through Kermit, and one day I was visiting Kermit, and Kermit and I were sitting around talking about how do we get inner city children into the theater. And Jim's idea was 1-hour ballets. Why don't you do a 1-hour Nutcracker and have Drosselmeyer be a speaking role, and they can draw the children in, because these would be children that had never been to the theater. And that's how we started doing 1-hour ballets. So Nutcracker was a success. And then the next ballet I wanted to do was Cinderella, and Donald had a Cinderella. So that's how it came about.
And so New York Theater Ballet started doing Cinderella in 1991.
Correct.
And is this the version that you started with, or how has it evolved over the years?
It's exactly the version we started with. Our costume designer was a dancer with the company. She's now resident costume designer at the Metropolitan Opera. She had great ideas for the costumes. Our set designer was Jillian Bradshaw Smith, who I had met years ago through someone. She was not a set designer. She was a sculptor and a painter, and this was the second set she had ever done for us.
So obviously over the years you've had many leads who are Cinderella and the Prince Charming, and tonight we saw this beautiful Stephen Melendez and Elena Zalman.
Yeah.
And so when you're coaching them to take on these roles, and they're roles that so many ballet dancers have done, how do you help them make it their own? How do you help each dancer that you coach kind of bring their sense of self to these iconic roles?
Well, we talk about the role. We don't just rehearse the role. Sometimes we sit and talk about the character. I think in our classes we talk about how to make the dance generous to the public. I mean, what is art besides generosity? You know, it's nothing you keep to yourself. You have to give it over to the public. So we talk about how to do that with the focus of the eyes, with gesture of movement. We're not always working on steps and pointing your feet and trying to do that extra pirouette. It's more about telling the story to the audience. And we work on that just as hard as we work on steps, on the technique.
And obviously in this ballet, we have two characters who don't care anything about pointing their feet and being elegant in any way. And in the pre-talk, we discuss the tradition of English pantomime that comes from. And so the stepsisters that we had today, Mitchell Kilby and Michael Wells, how did you coach them in, after teaching them how to be elegant and how to have clean lines, how do you then tear that all apart and help them, find the awkwardness and find the clumsiness?
Donald Mahler does a lot of coaching with the sisters. I do some, but Donald does a lot as well. We talk about having the sisters be real people, and they shouldn't comment on the sisters. They have to be the sisters. And I think that the audience should, in some ways, feel sorry for the sisters and really feel for them. It's not just slapstick comedy. So that's what we talk about a lot.
The question is about the work that that New York Theater Ballet is doing in the schools, your outreach work.
Our outreach is a little different. We have a program called Lift Community Services. It's been going on for over 25 years, and it's a scholarship program for children living in homeless shelters. And your prince this evening is from that program, Stephen Melendez. He was one of the first children I had in that program.
And so Cinderella, as you said, you started doing these hour-long ballets aimed at children, but it's just one part of what New York Theater Ballet does.
Right.
And last weekend I was at a performance at your new home in St. Mark's Church, and you had a huge spectrum of choreography, and you were doing works from the 1930s from Anthony Tudor and Frederick Ashton. You were doing work from Richard Alston, a British modern choreographer, and you also premiered new work by Gemma Bond, who's a core member of American Ballet Theatre. So can you talk about that vision of a company and why you wanted it to kind of have all these different facets and aspects to it?
Well, personally, I love dancing, and I had dreamed of having a company, and I don't think the country needs another major big company. I think what we try to bring to the public is a different theatrical experience. It's very personal, and you become a part of our story. So I search for ballets that are with our aesthetic. And I was a pupil of Tudor's, so we have more Tudor ballets in our rep than any other company in the world. I love Ashton. I love the ballets that aren't just athletic. I try to find ballets that will touch people. We train in the Giacchetti technique. It's a very quiet, respecting the body kind of technique. It's very aware of music and phrasing and style, and not, I say again, not athletic. So we try to find choreographers that would like to work in that style. And then for our revivals, we try to get the closest to the original that we possibly can. We do a lot of research. We use labanotation, which is fantastic for us, and try to get it as close to the original as possible.